Our time for a check of the top business news stories. Our business editor, Kate Moody's here. Hi there, Kate.
Hi, Tom.
Now, consumer prices in the United States are rising at their fastest pace in more than a decade. Tell us more.
Yeah, inflation hitting its highest level since 2008. That was leading into the financial crisis and recession. In May of this year, consumer prices were 0.6% higher than the previous month, but fully 5% higher than in May of last year, when the pandemic and lockdowns had thrust the U.S. into recession. Among the elements that are driving that hot inflation are the rising cost of flights, household goods and clothing, as well as a 7.3% jump in the price of used cars. The core inflation rate, which removes volatile food and energy prices, rose 3.8% compared to last May. That is the biggest jump for that reading since 1992. The changes are linked to rising demand for goods and services and manufacturers passing along the higher cost of raw materials and transportation. The U.S. Central Bank targets steady inflation of around 2%, and it says the current spikes are likely to be temporary. If not, the Fed will face more pressure to raise interest rates and reduce stimulus in an effort to regain a balance. If inflation drastically outpaces wage increases, it can make life too expensive for workers. Well, separately, the number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits fell last week to the lowest level in nearly 15 months. 376,000 new claims were recorded in the sixth straight week of declines. The European Central Bank has kept interest rates and stimulus on hold. The ECB raised its forecast for the Eurozone's economic recovery, expecting GDP growth of 4.6% this year, compared to its previous estimate of 4%. Inflation is expected to accelerate to the ECB's target of just under 2%. The bank will continue its 1.8 trillion euro bond buying program through next March. Its current pace is around 85 billion euros per month. Well, the ECB's Christine Lagarde, said that support would continue through the pandemic. And although she described the outlook as more optimistic than it was 3 months ago, she cautioned that risks remain.
On the one hand, an even stronger recovery could be predicated on brighter prospects for global demand and a faster than anticipated reduction in household savings once social and travel restrictions have been lifted. On the other hand, the ongoing pandemic, including the spread of virus mutations and its implications for economic and financial conditions, continue to be a source of downside risk.
Let's check in on the day's trading action now. A mostly lower close for the major European indices. Investors around the world worried that high U.S. inflation could spread. Just the FTSE 100 ending slightly higher in London. Wall Street has largely shrugged off those concerns. The S&P 500 hitting a new record high. The Nasdaq up over 0.75 percentage point. Shares of GameStop have slumped around 20%, despite reporting a jump in sales last quarter. The video game retailer has also tapped a former Amazon executive to be its next CEO. Well, the pandemic has disrupted supply chains for all industries around the world. Here in France, the construction sector is now facing an unprecedented shortage of raw materials like wood, plastic, and scrap metal. Laurent Berstecker reports.
Michael Lopez's warehouse is usually filled to the brink with construction materials. But this year, it's almost empty.
Donc en temps normal, le stock arrive jusqu'ici et monte quasiment sur toute l'intégralité de la hauteur du dépôt.
Glass wool, plaster, scrap metal, timber, and even plastic, everything is in short supply, and it's having an impact on prices.
Les prix augmentent fortement, en règle générale entre 30 et 100% selon les matériaux.
The shortages were initially triggered by slower production due to the pandemic, but have been compounded by several other factors. The US and China have been making massive purchases of wood and scrap metal, drying up European reserves. Meanwhile, demand for raw materials has skyrocketed in the European Union as member states look to launch large-scale construction and insulation projects over the summer. For masonry contractor Benoît Cuvelier, this unprecedented situation could even spark an unemployment crisis in the construction sector.
C'est la première fois que je vois une telle situation. Alors, il y a eu des problèmes en 2008 où on avait les matériaux mais pas les chantiers. Là, on a les chantiers et pas les matériaux.
There are hopes the situation will improve by the end of the year as production catches up to global demand.
That's all for now.
Thank you very much indeed. Our business editor, Kate Moody.